All right. So welcome to my lightning talk. My name is Brad Desonier. I'm a software engineer with IBM. Was in the cloud division and just moved to analytics. So this talk is about using IBM's Urban Code Deploy blueprint tool and integrating it with VMware, project we did in the cloud division for a customer. So the problem the customer had is they have a VMware shop. Everything they do is on VMware. They wanted to automate their deployments. They wanted basically hit a button and have a whole bunch of virtual machines created, all networked together, nice little package. So we did a proof of concept with several different tools. We used vRealize, we used IBM Cloud Orchestrator, and then we also tried Urban Code Deploy Blueprint Designer. And we showed all of these to the customer. We explained the process behind them all, and they really liked the UCD Blueprint Designer tool, so we went forward with that one. Then they came to us and said, oh, and by the way, we also want you to make everything auto-scaling. So we kind of scratched our heads a little bit because Urban Code Deploy Blueprint Designer does not do auto-scaling natively with VMware. It relies on heat and Ceilometer, so it needs an OpenStack environment to auto-scale. So we had our Blueprint Designer. This is for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's a pretty cool tool. You have your cloud components over here. You can drag and drop images onto the palette. You can drag some networking, so you can add different networks to your virtual machine. Storage, all these different things are available in the Blueprint Designer tool. It works not only with VMware, but also works with any OpenStack deployment. It works with AWS. It works with SoftLayer. So if you have images, networks in any of these environments, it'll recognize them. You can use them. It does full orchestration of VMware. That's why the customer liked it. It's also extremely lightweight. We were running this on a single virtual machine. VMware ESX, obviously it's very popular. This particular customer used it for everything. They love VMware. VMware makes their own tool called vRealize that does all of this orchestration, auto-scaling. The customer tried it. They didn't really like it. It was a little too complex for them. It was too much. As you can see here, there's a lot on that screen. It does monitoring. It does a lot more than just simple orchestration. But it was too much for them, essentially. So we started looking into VMware Integrated OpenStack, which is essentially a layer of OpenStack that you put on top of VMware. So you get this nice little OpenStack GUI to manage your VMware environment. Obviously, it's not just the GUI. It manages everything, the virtual machines, the storage, the network, all from an OpenStack perspective. So you can use the OpenStack APIs to create virtual machines, to set up networking, everything. So putting it all together. When we installed VMware Integrated OpenStack on top of VMware, we're able to then have Urban Code Deploy Blueprint Designer, and I keep stumbling because I want to call it Urban Code Deploy with Patterns. They changed the name recently, just to throw me off, I bet. But you can do this little auto-scaling widget when you create a blueprint now. And in that auto-scaling widget, you can say, for example, if my CPU utilization goes above 15 or goes below 15% scale down, if it goes above 50% scale up. So you have a drag and drop auto-scaling definition inside of Urban Code Deploy that now can manage an entire VMware ESX environment. So we not only have our drag and drop orchestration, we have the auto-scaling that the customer wanted. And it literally is drag and drop, and then you can push a button or make an API call to set up any of these environments. I don't know how familiar people are with different orchestrators, but it takes all the manual process out of setting up your environment. It creates your virtual machines based on your images. You can install software, you can create users, you can, like I said, set up the networking, all within a nice little framework, and click a button, everything gets created. It's kind of like magic. I like it. So here's an architecture diagram of the entire setup. We used Spectrum Scale for the storage for VMware per the customer's request. We have, in this chart, it's still called UCD with patterns. Now it's called Urban Code Deploy Blueprint Designer. And just regular Urban Code Deploy. They're talking to OpenStack. OpenStack is then, if you follow the little lines, goes over here. It's talking to VMware. It's talking to vSphere. It's managing all of these virtual machines within the entire VMware infrastructure. Of course, you have your NSX, your networking inside of VMware. And yeah, this is the entire environment right here. So what we were able to achieve was, for this customer, using a single small virtual machine, I mean, we're talking about 2 cores, 4 gigs of RAM, we're able to manage their entire VMware infrastructure using click button deployments, automated deployments. We achieved auto scaling. They not just based on CPU, but based on disk consumption, network bandwidth, all these different parameters we could choose from. And we not only met what they wanted, we surpassed it. And I was in such a hurry to get through my talk under the 15-minute time limit, I went way too fast. Yes? Yeah? Yes. Yeah, so the question was, when I set up my auto scaling, let's go back to that chart. When I set up my auto scaling for networking, I'm also saying if my bandwidth drops below a certain level, I'm trying to remember exactly what it does, but you create your rules and through the GUI, and then have it take an action. So in this particular one, you're adding a server. For networking, it was something to do with NSX. But yeah. Storage, yes. So, like I said, we're using Spectrum Scale here for all of the storage inside of VMware. But you can also use, like in SoftLayer, you have the network attached storage. Amazon has storage. You can set up your storage rules to add not only from the cloud provider, but you may not have allocated all of your Spectrum Scale storage to your cluster to begin with. You may have extra storage there left over. You can create your rules to add storage as needed. So I apologize for going so fast. I've been told that I'll be over here at this Ask Me Anything booth for a little while, if there's any questions. Can you use Docker at all for this? We didn't. We actually looked, though, at creating a container that was running the IBM Urban Code. It's not a deploy anymore. Urban Code, or it is deployed. It's not with patterns, but IBM Urban Code Blueprint Designer inside of a container, and it does run, and it runs pretty well. It's such a small product. Essentially, all it's doing is creating heat templates. So creating those templates obviously is very low scale. There's not a lot involved. So we did try it out, and it worked. But our end solution was just creating a virtual machine, this particular one in SoftLayer, inside the same account as the customer's ESX servers. So, do I just... Okay. Thank you.